Welcome to today's episode, where we're joined by Brian Wallack, a seasoned fitness professional with 8 years of lifting experience, a bachelor's and master's in kinesiology, and a CSCS certification.
Brian runs a thriving online coaching business, spends most of his time in the gym, and shares fitness insights through social media.
We'll explore how building muscle can enhance longevity, break down the science of anabolic windows, and uncover why creatine should be a staple in your training routine.
Stay tuned for a knowledge-packed conversation.
So I grew up playing a lot of different sports. Basketball and volleyball and baseball were kind of my main three, but I didn't do a lot of weightlifting just because when I was younger, I always believed, because there's the common myth around it, that if you lift weights, it stunts your growth. And obviously I wanted to be as tall as I possibly could. Wasn't until my first year at university, I had a really good strength and conditioning coach out at UBC that really inspired me to get into the weight room. And as soon as I started seeing results in my performance, not just like putting on muscle mass, but being able to jump higher and move faster just from lifting weights, I was hooked. So I remember my third year at university, COVID happened, and then I was just at home reading textbooks like nonstop about like different strength and conditioning techniques. And there's this one book that I recommend called Super Training. That's this like 1970s Russian scientist that made a bunch of these like sprint and high jumpers go to the Olympics. And the book's like this thick, it's massive. And it just talks about every single method that's been done in the 90s, like 70s, 80s, 90s. So got into that space, and then obviously like been playing basketball for the longest time. So I paired some weightlifting with basketball, and those kind of been my two passions.
Nice. What motivated you to pursue your degree in kinesiology and earn your CSCS personal training certification?
It goes back to the thing I kind of said before. Like I saw how powerful like strength and conditioning can be for increasing your performance.
Yeah.
Like in high school, I was like 6'4" in grade 12, but I could barely dunk. Like I just didn't have the athletic gene in me, at least I thought. And then I hit the weight room and did specific training that induced like those adaptations. And then I ended up having like a 41, 42-inch vertical by prime, like I'd say fourth year of university. And that inspired me obviously to get the CSCS and realize that there's more to this. I wanted to be certified because I wanted to help others as well.
Yeah.
Like there's this one basketball trainer called PJF Performance, Paul Favorites, that trains like James Harden and stuff, and he's really well known in the basketball fitness community and performance community. And I really wanted to be like him when I grew up. So I followed all his stuff. I basically like he would be like, oh, I do like an hour of reading textbooks in the morning. I'm like, okay, bet I'm gonna do 2 hours of reading. And yeah, I kind of progressed from there.
Nice. How did you transition from basketball into running your own coaching online and personal training?
I just realized like it's all about branding when it comes to personal training, because if you don't have a brand that you can sell, sorry, I just got a text message. If you don't have a brand that you can sell, then what makes your personal training different than anybody else? The
Yeah.
personal training business is all about business. It's not actually about what you know. And I came to that realization after being like, I know so much about performance training, but there's these other people making so much more money and having so much more clients than me because they're in the people business rather than the training business. So just the ability to recognize that you need your own personal brand in order to drive clients to your own personal training, rather than being like, I know this, and that's why you should follow me.
Okay. Can you take us into protein windows and anabolic timing around workouts in general, every hour, couple hours? Yeah, can you break that down for those who may not be familiar?
Yeah, the science is pretty simple with it. It's constantly changing those, but I like to stick to kind of the most secure studies that have been done in within the past 5 years. Basically, you want to intake, I'm going to put it in grams for metrics. You want to have zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.3 grams per kilogram per meal of protein. So if I'm 100 grams or 100 kilograms, that means I'm having 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal in order to satiate and reach that protein synthesis level. So if I want to build muscle or keep my protein synthesis, and protein synthesis is the body's mechanism in order to build muscle.
Yeah.
If I want to maximize that, like I have to be within that range of 20 to 30 grams. Obviously, there's other components to it. Like I can't eat 30 grams and then not eat 30 grams for 5 hours or 10 hours in the day and then think I'm going to keep gaining muscle. I have to be doing that 3 to 4 hours throughout the day. So 30 grams of protein every 3 hours throughout the day is what they deem to be optimal right now.
Yeah.
There's been some new studies that came out, and Jeff Nippard, a well-known Canadian content creator, fitness content creator, who's also like pretty well versed in like the research side of stuff. He's talking about how new studies are saying that you can intake 30 or 100 grams of protein per meal.
Yeah.
But I just think in terms of overall health and like saving your kidneys and stuff, I think it's just the safer way to go about doing it is just having 30 grams per meal because you know it's going to activate protein synthesis. Uh, and you think about there's this idea called minimum effective dose, and basically like there, and then there's also the thought about how like everything in moderation, right? If I have 100 grams of protein every 3 hours, I'm going to reach my protein goal pretty quickly, but that's not in moderation. And obviously, that's going to come with some negative consequences.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just 30 grams of protein every 3 hours. And then um, per day, you want to have 1.8 grams per kilogram. So if I'm 100 kilograms, that's 180 grams of protein in one day. And if you reach that goal, then you're most likely gonna keep building muscle.
Okay. Okay. So is the anabolic window as critical as people say it is in mainstream fitness?
No, no. So that's been debunked a couple years ago. It was originally thought because they were doing these studies on how, like, initially right after a workout, your window for creating protein synthesis spikes because of the testosterone levels and stress hormones that are going to repair muscle. But that window stays open for like 4 or 5 hours after you work out. What's more important, and especially if you're an athlete, is after you finish a workout, you should have some carbs right after a workout. And what that does is like when you work out, you have glycogen stores in your muscles, and that's basically like your energy source that comes from carbohydrates. You work out, and you have a tough workout, you deplete those glycogen stores. And then after a workout, it's really important to get carbohydrates in within that 30-minute to an hour window in order to replenish those glycogen stores as quickly as possible so you can recover faster. If I do protein within that window, it's good, but it's not the number one optimal thing that you need to do. Like I could have a protein shake 3 hours after a workout and still be completely fine. But if I don't have some carbs right after that workout, my next workout later that day, say I have a weight room training as a basketball player in the morning, and then I have a workout in the afternoon, like on court. If I don't have carbs after that weight training, my on court performance is going to decrease. So,
Yeah.
um, I had one more thought behind it. Yeah, I think that was it actually. Okay.
Okay. For creatine, do you think there's an optimal time to be taking it? I know some research says that with carbs can help with the uptake. And then what about after a workout as well, while the growth factors are circulating and things like that?
Yeah, it's not significant enough, or at least the research says it's not significant enough for timing. Like I think it's just in terms of um accessibility, like when can you do it during the day that ensures that you do it every single day.
Yeah.
I've taken creatine for like 7 years right now. I'm kind of just going off it for a bit because I it's important that you cycle off it here and there in order
Really?
to not get any of the long term side effects of it. Yeah. So like creatine, when you take it for a couple weeks, you it's within your system, like
It's natural.
your creatinine levels are a little bit higher, and when you go off it, it's still in your system for like 30 days. So What they say is like you want to at least have a break for like 2 months, 3 months of creatine every couple years, just because if you're constantly at that higher creatine system, you think about just in general the give and take of anything in
Yeah.
biology. If I put more testosterone into my body naturally won't produce more testosterone. So creatine, although it's like an external source, it kind of goes with the same beat that like if I am constantly putting my body with more creatine unnaturally, like endogenously, like through supplementation, then all these other metrics in my body compensate for it, and then I'm not
Yeah.
at homeostasis anymore. So
Yeah.
it's important to reset your body every couple of years if you want to stay on creatine for that
Yeah.
long.
Your body does produce creatine naturally, no? Small amount.
Um, yeah, I I think you might be right. I read something the other day that was talking about like for the most part you get it from red meats and such.
Yeah.
So
Some fish have it too. Um, are there any myths or misconceptions about creatine that you think are common and should not be
yeah, hair loss is a big one. Like people don't take it because they're worried that they're gonna go bald, but that one was just as debunked by like some 1980s study that had a bunch of bald people in it already.
yeah,
Um, you should drink a lot of water with creatine. Like creatine, its mechanism, it holds more water in your muscles, so you feel more full. But if you're not drinking more water, then you obviously become more dehydrated, and that puts more stress on your internal organs like your kidneys.
for sure.
So learn to drink more. Um, pairing it with uh, different macronutrients like carbs. I haven't seen much evidence behind that stuff. I'm sure there is some things out there,
Yeah.
but uh, I think, oh, another one too is the loading phase. So you get a new creatine thing and it says like, oh, you gotta,
20 grams.
for the 4 months, do like 4 scoops a day in order to
Yeah.
load it.
They just want you to use it faster.
Yeah, you don't need to do that because that's basically just a marketing tool to get you to run out of creatine faster, so you buy another tub.
Yeah.
All right, so how do you approach setting training goals for clients with different fitness levels?
Well, you got to do testing initially and a lot of communication. So like you could cookie cutter um, programs to a lot of people, like have something that's very generalized, but in
Yeah.
order to keep clients that stay and really enjoy your programs, they have to be personalized. And the first step is obviously communicating with them and then doing a lot of testing. So I'll give an example. Like I could have a grade 12 basketball kid that was doing my training. And he obviously has these goals of jumping higher and being faster and putting on a little bit of weight. And then I could have another client that's like 32, has a desk job, and just wants to get a little bit more active and lose weight. Obviously, their goals are different. So the testing that I do and the questions that I ask them initially are the most important things to then determine what I can add or subtract from that program to at least give them more results, right?
That was an insightful first half to our discussions with Brian. Come back next week to check out our deep dive into creatine and protein usage on episode 2, part 2.
David, I think it's time we respond to some of our listeners' unanswered questions from Twitter. Let's get into it.
Let's start off with Ethan_M22 asking us, is creatine worth it for beginners or should I focus on other things before adding it to my routine?
Creatine is definitely worth it no matter what stage you are at. Creatine is going to boost your energy production in your muscles. It's going to allow you to do more reps in every set. It's going to increase your strength and also your power output. So it's great for athletes as well. It's also really good for promoting recovery. It's safe, well-researched, and it's going to support your brain function and healthy aging as well. That said, your top priority should be proper technique, consistency, and a balanced diet before you focus on adding in supplements.
Okay, next question's from Chris Johnson. What lifts are best for building muscle and improving longevity? Should I stick to the basics like squats and deadlifts?
Whether the goal is to get stronger or build muscle, your go-to exercises should be what works best for your body. Everyone's physically different, and there's no one-size-fits-all approach to fitness. Try everything is a good place to start. So anything that you've done before, you enjoy, things like that, things that don't hurt you, like you don't get joint pain or soreness in a tendon the next day, that's a good place to start. However, there are some guardrails to stay within. Those being use compound movements as often as possible. Compound movements just mean you're using more than one joint at a time. Our next question is from Jake Carter. How important is the anabolic window? Do I really need to eat right after working out, or is it fine to wait? David?
So the anabolic window isn't as strict as people used to think because you have a few hours post-workout to eat and maximize recovery. So just focus on hitting your protein and carb goals for the day rather than stressing about timing.
It's from Daniel_H. How does creatine impact endurance or long duration activities? Is it only useful for short bursts of effort? So sprints, jumping. I think that's what he means.
Yeah, creatine is primarily effective for short high intensity work efforts like lifting or sprinting, but it can indirectly benefit endurance by improving recovery between efforts in activities like cycling or running, since it helps sustain intensity over longer periods, especially during the intermittent bursts.
Actually, I don't even know that.
So another creatine question from Kyle Bennett. I've heard creatine causes water retention. Should I be concerned about this affecting my physique or wait for competitions?
No, you're good. Creatine does cause some water retention in the muscle, but that's the point. It's gonna pull the water into the muscle, and that's just gonna help create more ATP. It's not enough to affect your physique significantly or at all. The water is stored, within the cell, so it's not under the skin, and it's not within the interstitial space, so it's not going to lead to a bloated appearance. If weight gain is a concern, you can adjust your creatine dosage, but I wouldn't recommend that. You're going to gain a pound or two just because the creatine is pulling water into your muscle cells, but nothing to be worried about. David, we've got another one for you from Ryan. How does muscle mass impact longevity, and can having more muscle really help you live longer?
Yes, since muscle mass is strongly linked to longevity. More muscle improves metabolism and it supports better mobility and helps reduce the risk of chronic diseases like diabetes or osteoporosis. Strength training is one of the most effective ways to maintain muscle as you age, but however, while naturally building muscle is beneficial, using performance-enhancing drugs like PEDs can be dangerous since PEDs can lead to excessive muscle growth, but they also carry serious health risks like heart problems, liver damage, and hormone imbalances, which it can negatively affect overall health and longevity. So it's important to build your muscle naturally and sustainability to reap the long benefits without compromising your health. Okay, so Tom Harris, does sleep quality impact longevity? How much sleep should I be getting for optimal health?
So sleep quality is crucial for your longevity. Having chronically poor sleep under 4 or 5 cycles a night, so that's every cycle is around 90 minutes, so 4 cycles would be 6 hours. 5 cycles is okay and can help you maintain your cognitive function and reduce the risk of any comorbidities, so heart disease, diabetes, osteoporosis. So that would be 7.5 hours a night. Ideally, you would have 9 hours per night, which is perfect for athletes who are looking to reduce their risk of injury. There was a study done that showed the difference between 7 hours, 8 hours, and 9 hours. 7.5 had the highest risk of injury. 8 was slightly less, but 9 was increasingly, it was exponentially larger in the reduced risk of injury. So aim for 9. We're going to introduce a new segment called Lifter Lingo. We're going to go over commonly unknown terms in the lifting community, such as RPE, RIR, eccentric training, isokinetic training, and so many more. We're going to uncover the background and explain what it means and how you can apply it to your own training. David, what's today's word?
So today's word is eccentric.
Okay, let's talk about eccentric training. So, The principles of eccentric training are using super maximal loads. So that's more weight than you can actually do for a full rep. So an eccentric is the lowering portion. A full rep would include an eccentric, so you lower the weight. For example, on the bench press, you'll lower the weight. You'll touch your chest, so that's the isometric. And then you'll do the concentric. You're going to press it up again. There's 3 portions to every lift. So the eccentric would be just focusing on lowering the weight.
Okay. So for the load, you can lift heavier weights during the eccentric phase than you would during the concentric phase. So it's often recommended to use the spotter or assistive equipment when doing eccentric training to ensure your safety.
So if I were to load up 4 plates on the bench press, which I can't press for a full rep, I would be able to lower it, which is more weight than I can do concentrically or for a full rep. So I can lower it, but I can't get it up again. I'll need either spotters to pull it back up or spotter arms, so the safety pins on the sides to rack it. To maximize eccentric training, the lowering phase should be under 10 seconds so that you utilize the alactic threshold. When you go over 10 seconds, lactate starts to build up, which is switching systems from an aerobic to more switching from the anaerobic system to an aerobic system.
And the frequency of eccentric training is taxing on the muscles. So it's usually recommended to incorporate it 1 to 2 times a week before or to avoid overtraining.
So let's talk about eccentric squats. We can unrack the barbell. We can control the descent. Ideally, we have enough energy so that by the end of the rep, once we're closer to the safety pins, we're able to rack it without slamming it down or losing control. The reason we can do more load for the eccentric is because of gravity. It's helping us take the weight down. Let's talk about sets and reps.
So you can use a typical set and rep ranges like 3 to 5 sets and 5 to 8 reps. But the key is really focusing on the eccentric, like the lowering part. So you may need to reduce the weight for the concentric part since you're focusing on controlling the negative phase.
So you could do, say for the squat, if you have spotters. If you're doing it alone, this won't work. But if you have spotters, you can unrack 5 plates, walk it out, squat it down. Again, you're focusing on keeping it controlled, especially closer to the bottom, so 6, 7, 8 seconds. As you reach the bottom, you'll have spotters pull off 2 or 3 plates, and then you'll squat up the rest of the load, and then you can repeat that, but they'll have to re-rack the plates. So it's time-consuming, and it's a lot more work than necessary. You can also just lower the weight for 1 rep, and that's your set. And that's totally fine. But yeah, keep your normal set range. 3, 4, 5, even 6 sets are okay. Make sure your rest time is long though. David, do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so given the intensity of the eccentric work, aim for about like 2 to 3 minutes of rest in between sets for full recovery.
Yeah, you want to make sure your heart rate and breathing are back to normal for sure. And just physically, you're not fatigued and you're ready to go back into that set. So if you're doing squats, your quads are ready. Your lower back even, or your calves from the walkout, they're ready to go. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Perfect. All right, so thank you for tuning into Barbells and Banter. This week's episode, we covered longevity, creatine, and anabolic windows with Brian, and we also went over the lifter lingo term eccentric. We went through a couple of questions on creatine, impact on endurance, and protein. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Come back next week.
2 barbells and banter.